Three things: creating reports, creating dashboards, and then at the end, how we enrich the reports for usability. Let's start with the first one, which is creating reports. When you design the report, that's when you actually bring data to life. That's when you start looking at using more of an art form rather than just using the technology form. What format of reports will work for your business? What is your audience? What kind of color schemes will work? What kind of visuals will work better with your audience? What are the different needs that your users might have that you might want to play with? And then at the same time, what kind of different visuals and elements of the visuals that you want to play with to really get that storytelling going for you and for your business? Now, when you do these kind of things, it's probably good to start with certain guidelines. The first guideline that I'll probably start with is draw a sketch. Have a rough outline of how you want your reports to look like. What is the central theme of the report that you're trying to produce? What is the key information that you're trying to pass on to the users? And then also look at things like, what is the right background? What is the right coloring scheme? And then at the same time, also do not exclude the importance of aspect ratios. You don't want to create a report where majority of the numbers and majority of the visualizations are pretty large, and then you have one small tiny piece sitting somewhere in the corner which is just conveying something. You want to make sure that all these different visualizations are balanced rightly. When it comes to Power BI, there are many visualization options that's available, which are available out of the box. You could start with something like table and metrics. You could think about bar and column charts. You could think about line and area charts. You could think of pie charts. Tree maps are actually quite common these days. Combo charts, and then card visualizations. And there are so many more which actually would probably categorize as more of basic or fundamental visualizations. They all do provide a lot of mechanisms for you to not just tweak them on the outlook, but also inject analytics in that. We will go and talk more about that as well. And then you have some advanced topics like funnel visualizations and gauge and waterfall. Scatter plot is pretty important these days, and maps, probably an evergreen topic there. And then Q&A visualization. All these different tools, all these different visualizations, they have some analytics which is embedded already in it. And they really go and focus on a very specific visualization and specific storytelling that you can convey to your business. For example, in case of funnel visualization, it actually lets you convey to your users where exactly bulk of the weight or bulk of the queue is sitting at, and then they can go and focus specifically on that. Generally, it applies to something in the sales pipeline kind of a scenario. Maps is pretty common these days, and then you have scatter plot, which is actually used quite a lot in things like data science, in statistical analysis, and also to look at some of the outlier scenarios. And beyond these, there are custom visualizations that's available. Now, custom visuals could be created by you. It could be created by one of your vendors or one of the products that you're using already. And you can will find that you have connectors already baked in, which can really use to connect to the tools, to the technology, and get started with the visualizations from there itself. So please do explore a bit more on that. If there is a popular product out there, there is a very strong chance that a custom visual is already present for that. Beyond the basic customizations, you actually can use conditional formatting. This can be used to outline and highlight certain values in your data sets so that they can really talk to your business story. For example, if you want to look at the sales numbers, which are pretty good, we probably can highlight them using green. And then those who are not so great probably can be highlighted using red here. The only one thing that I'll say, this is a great resource to leverage. Just the only bit I will say is that don't overdo it. maybe 2-color scheme is okay, maybe 3-color scheme is probably better. You can go beyond that, but is there a value in doing that? So those kind of things that you need to really go and focus on as well. Beyond that, you have things like slicing, filtering, and sorting that you can really use, and something that you can play with. Slicers help your users to basically work with all the different filters and how they actually can communicate different stories and really customize the data to what they want to figure out. Filtering is also in the similar stride, except that this is actually now letting the user to filter a specific attribute and have that propagated across all the different visuals that probably you have on the screen. And then sorting is again another interactivity that can be injected into your visualizations, because some users might be looking at what cities are exhibiting the most sales, but then some users might be interested in finding out where the sales are the least so that they can focus on those. Again, there are some good accessibility guidelines around how do you go and design your reports. From diversity and inclusion perspective, from accessibility perspective, these are some real good resources. And just for information as well, Microsoft is considered to be one of the pioneers out there in D&I space, and we have really injected all of that information and knowledge into the product stack. So be it navigation, be it things like screen reader, high contrast, focus mode, all these things are available in Power BI, which you can really leverage for your business. Now let's jump on to creating dashboards. With reports, you go and create visualizations, which can be put in different tiles, which we talked about earlier. In dashboards also, you have something similar. So where is the difference between these two? I think the most fundamental difference between dashboard and report is that in dashboard, you basically start with the reports itself. Visualizations are basically clubbed together to give a perspective across the business. So, for example, if you want to show underlying data set to the author, you will not be able to do that in dashboards. For that, you will have to go back to reports. If you want to look at multiple pages, for example, dashboards will not allow you to do that. You will be able to do that in reports. Filters, visualization, filter paints, and few other bits and pieces are another thing which is not visible in dashboards. They are useful and available in reports. But then on the hindsight, if you think about it, if you want to create a visual, if you want to create one consolidated view of the business, which basically brings in data and report visualizations, let's say from finance, from HR, from sales, from production, and all those kind of different things, which might have their own segregated data sources, that is possible in dashboard. That won't be possible in reports because there is a good chance that all these data sources are a lot different and you cannot bring them all together in one go. Other than all these different differentiations, dashboards also has some more capabilities. For example, you actually can work with what you call upon as mobile view in dashboard, and it basically translates your report into a mobile friendly version and really can see the difference. So the one on the right is probably the bigger version, and then one on the left basically has been translated into something which is more compatible and viewable on a mobile device. What you also could do is you could configure data alerts. When you look at some of these things, when you have certain numbers coming out on dashboard, when you have created a dashboard, you actually can create an alert as a user for yourself to say if this particular value goes here or wherever, looking at the conditions, it can then alert you if those numbers basically go up or down. Now that could be for real specific numbers, that could be a percentage, whichever way the numbers have been produced is something that you can leverage for your alerting mechanism. Another key bit that really helps and is really one of the interesting topics amongst the business users is Q&A. By virtue of having this capability, users are no more dependent on developers who will have to go and create a report for them to be able to see the perspective of the business that they're trying to find out. If the data is available in the underlying data sets, they actually can form a natural language processing based query, which is actually a normal fundamental query that a normal user will ask, and then put that to Power BI. And Power BI basically takes that query, do the NLP algorithm processing, which is natural language processing algorithms, and give the answers back to the user. So no more that dependency of really going back to the business, to the developers all the time to get some outcome. Again, you may not have the really complicated scenarios addressed, and at the same time, the system needs to have the data to be able to go and facilitate that. But from what I have seen and with my experience, this works really well in a lot of cases. Another key bit which Dashboard actually helps a lot with is data classification. So within dashboards, you could use the classifications like do not share, ask for permission, and okay to share kind of a thing. And by virtue of doing that, you really can exchange the information or stop the exchange of information among the business users, depending on what kind of data classification you think you might want to apply to that. With that, now let's go to the last subtopic on this, which is enriching the reports for usability. One of the amazing resources that's available in Power BI is bookmarks. Bookmarks works something like this. You go and create a report. You set it out with certain filters, which you want to be the default view that every business user will see. And then you basically create a bookmark for that. And when user basically transcends onto that particular screen, by default, they will see the view that you have set out. So this is a very good way of controlling the overall experience that users will see when they land on your report. Other than that, you have other bits and pieces which you can use. For example, there is filters on the top. Then you have selection, performance analyzer, and sync slicer. So all these are different key capabilities that you should be aware of when you are thinking of Power BI and specifically this exam. Another key bit that you really can play with is editing interactions. When you have a particular report which has, say, few number of visualizations, there are times when you want one particular visualization to not be filtered, or most of them to be filtered in a particular way, but not one or two of them. When you want to control this kind of a flow, when you want to control the interactivity between these different visualizations on the screen in a report, you can do that by editing interactions. And this will basically control whether or not a particular visualization gets impacted by the filtering that your users are putting on their screens. Another key aspect to be aware of, and probably something that should have or should try, is drill through. There are cases when drill through happen within the same report. So for example, on the screen on the left side, you have some key details, and then if you want to drill through to the very particular numbers, you can drill through under the same report. And then the next one is where you might want to cross report drill through, where you probably start from let's say from a map report where you want to go to the drill through, and then drill through basically takes you to a separate report tab where the detailed information is provided. Again, there is a good documentation that's available for doing something like this, which you should go and have a play with. It basically outlines all the different interactions, drill through, cross report, drill through, and some of the caveats to be aware of when you work with this. So with that, let's go and see a quick demo on how to create reports in Power BI. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with an outline. I am calling out, I'm going to place logo, filters, a high-level visualization for sales by financial year, and then break it down by country and by product category. Let's make a start. So in this particular report, I've tried to mimic what I wanted. I've started with the logo, and that logo is actually nothing but an image, which I have basically embedded in the report. I've then got filters. Filters, the first one is on financial year, which is basically one of the slicers that I've used, and data is coming from the data set itself. Another one I have used is region. So I've got the first visualization, which is around sales and profit margin by month. And in this case, I've got two measures, profit margin and sales. And then I've basically reported it by month. The sales numbers are on the chart, bar chart, and the profit margin is represented by the line. Yeah. So now let's look at the next one, which is around sales by country. In this case, I've basically chosen a particular attribute which is recognizable by the map visualization, and that's I've dropped in sales number. And then sales by category is the same. I've basically used a tree map, and I've dropped in my product categories and sales. So let's now drill through to components, which is a cross-report drill through in this particular case. And if you notice, this report actually is hidden, so it's not accessible directly. It's only through drill through that I can actually access it. So here you go. I have basically detailed by components, which I clicked on. So that's the drill through report for components. So let's do one more thing. Let's try to bring about these icons and where exactly did we got it from. So I basically have put in conditional formatting. There are multiple ways I can do it. I'm using the icons for profit margin. I've basically taken the default numbers and basically just put that in, and that's about it. The color column is also conditional formatting, which obviously is a background context that I've used. Now let's look at the interactions. So in this particular case, I'm looking at financial year 2019. And if I go to profits, this is again 2019 for everything. Let's look at some numbers. Let's add some more filters for Germany. Okay, no, not for Germany, Canada maybe. Yeah, Canada is good. Now if I go back to the previous report, you will see that the filter actually has been applied here as well. So what is happening is when I'm applying filter across my reports, they are basically propagating across, and I can look at and access those. All of this is actually happening because of the sync slicer feature that I've used between these two reports. So sync slicer is what we used. So let's go and look at that once more. So if I just highlight that, so you see that overview and profit reports have that. And if I just go back again to the overview report, that's what has been passing through. Another one is you just looked at mobile layout, and page view is another thing that you probably can leverage to basically increase your real estate on your reports and everything. And these are all very specific to the developers and the way they prefer to work with certain these things basically. Now there is only one small thing that I want to do. There is a select all option that I want to add to the selection and slicer rather. And all these are just kind of exposing you all the options that's available. It's not to say this is comprehensive. Definitely you should go and explore a bit more on